I'm going to be talking about interview skills for experienced job applicants. Most of these tips are for all applicants, so there'll be lots to learn from here. So first, let me introduce myself. My name is Kim Hatchuel. I am a freelance proofreader. I also have a small recruitment consultancy. So I have worked a lot with helping people prepare for interviews. And if you've been on one of my previous webinars for AUT, with creating CVs as well. So I'm perfectly placed to assist with skills required to nail a job interview. Because I have clients, and I've been in recruitment for 10 years maybe, so I know what they're looking for in job interviews. Okay, so we'll start at the very, very beginning. Once you've been told you're going for a job interview, and you know where you know the company and where you're going. So the most important thing is never be late. So always make sure you're on time. Kind of probably a little bit early is better, but always make sure that you're on time. I always tell my candidates that an appropriate time to announce yourself to reception or online if you're on Zoom or Teams is 10 or 15 minutes before the scheduled time. So if your interview is at 10 a.m., announce yourself to reception at 1:45 or 10:45. Don't think that because you're there at 9:30, it's going to look really good and it's going to show them that you are keen and that you're not late. Because the reason they suggested 10 a.m. is because that's what time they are available. So if you get there at 9:30 and you bounce into reception, they're not going to see you. And then it's going to give you extra time to sit there and get nervous. So 10 to 15 minutes as well. Also, like I said, if you're online as well, that helps because then you can test all your technology. Okay, so make sure that you've accounted for traffic and the time it should take to get there. So, we're lucky enough to have load shedding and traffic lights out. If your GPS says it's going to take you 35 minutes to get there, give yourself extra time. Give yourself an extra 10 or 15 minutes just in case. And then if you do get to the offices early, you can sit and wait in your car and calm your nerves. Okay. If you obviously know the company who you're going to see, make sure that you've researched them. Go and look at their website, find out what it is they do, how long they've been in business. All those things are important because you can find ways of bringing it up in an interview. If you know that you're going to say Liberty Life for an interview, you go and look at their website. You know what they do, you know how long they've been in business. And then in the interview, you can find ways of saying something about when I looked at your website. And then they kind of go, she's interested or he's interested, taken time to research us. She's obviously very keen on this position and on us. And that's always a very good sign. The other thing you could potentially do without being too stalkerish is research the person who's going to interview you on LinkedIn, so that you know who they are, what their position is, how long they've been in the position. Kind of gives you a little bit of an idea about who the person is that you are going to meet with. And it's also a little bit respectful. Then when it comes to what you need to wear, you always need to dress for success. So I always tell candidates, overdress rather than underdress. You want to look professional. So for men, I say wear a business suit. Even now, obviously, if you're going for a graphic designer position, or a teacher position, maybe not a collared shirt, jacket, and tie, but always make sure that your shoes are polished. A funny story, I had a candidate who went for an interview and was rejected because his shoes were dirty and he was going for a corporate sales position. So I always like to tell people that. And then obviously no funnies, so no socks or ties which have cartoons on them. Men need to style their hair professionally if you have long hair and it is appropriate for the interview, tied back. And for men who wear earrings, I always advise to take them out. just because it looks kind of a little bit more professional in an interview space. And both men and women, not too much aftershave. You don't want to knock them out and you don't want to distract them. It's all they can concentrate on when you're supposed to be presenting yourself. For women, smart skirt, a dress, or very smart pants with a collared shirt and jacket. And obviously nothing too revealing, again, a distraction for the interviewer and not very professional. Make sure that you can walk in your shoes. So no high stilettos. It's not necessary. It's not a modeling shoot. Again, I had a candidate who fell walking into an interview because her shoes were too high. She thought it looked very professional, and it doesn't really. Style your hair professionally, nothing too fancy. You are there to impress these people. Light makeup and especially for women, strong perfume is a no-no because it's overpowering, and then the interviewer is, going to be concentrating on that smell only. So then let's talk about the things in an interview that you don't do before I get to what kind of questions you could get asked. Okay. Don't smoke at all before an interview. I know some people say it calms their nerves. But you can smell it on somebody, and it's not professional. And I know I say professional a lot, but these are very important things. Don't chew gum in the interview, or even peppermints. Those are also no. Don't have a late night the night before. You don't want to look tired, so just make sure you get a good night's rest. Also don't smell of alcohol. And then obviously don't eat or drink things that will make you smell bad. So no alcohol before, and obviously if you're going for lunch before your interview, just make sure that you don't smell of garlic. And I've had occasions before where somebody had to be dropped at an interview. In fact, I interviewed somebody whose partner sat at the table next to us in a coffee shop. So that's a big fat no-no. Ask them to come back when you're done. Okay. Don't put your bag or keys on the table in the actual interview. Leave them on the floor next to you. And I've had this before, and I've had candidates who have been turned down. It's a little bit presumptuous. Okay. You probably don't need to take a copy of your CV or your qualifications. So remember that they've seen your CV. You've applied for the position. The reason they've called you in for this interview is because they know who you are. They know what you've done. And they're ready to interview you based on that. Okay. They don't need to, and I've been asked before, don't take a pen and paper. Should I be writing notes? No. Their job is to write notes. Yours isn't. Yours is to sell yourself. Okay, this is important. Don't take a phone, laptop, or tablet. You don't need it. I tell every single one of my candidates to leave their phone in the car. Not to turn it off, not to put it on silent, because sometimes we forget. So get to your interview, pop it under your seat, leave it in the boot, make sure it's locked, and 9 times out of 10, it's pretty safe. It's a distraction. If you forget to switch it off, or if you leave it on vibrate, it's a distraction, and they're going to think that you haven't taken the time and consideration, and that you're not really interested. So that's really, really important. And you can wait for an hour or however long the interview is. Okay. Then when it comes to body language, and these things are all really important in an interview because you don't want to look bored, you don't want to be distracted, and you want to show them that you're interested and you're taking notice. So maintain a very good posture. Obviously, don't sit upright, and make sure you breathe and those sorts of things, but don't slouch, don't stare. When you meet the person, firm handshake, and I know sometimes for women, it's a little bit, women don't tend to do it, but show them that proud to meet them, and you offer them a firm handshake when you say hello. Okay. In the actual interview, you make eye contact without staring. Obviously, you can look away every now and again, but not too often. Don't look off into the distance. because sometimes that makes you look a little bit bored, and you really don't want that. Okay. Confident, not arrogant. So you don't really want to tell them that you're the best thing since sliced bread, and if they don't hire you, then they're stupid. But at the same time, you want to show them that you are the perfect person for this job, and that you have the skills and experience, and that when you start there, if you are successful, you literally hit the ground running. Train on their systems and those sorts of things. But so that's a little bit, and there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. So just make sure that you're not too arrogant. You don't want them to be put off. Also, if you've read the job spec and you know what's expected of the person who's going to get the job, that's helpful. So I've seen job specs where they sort of go through the qualifications, the experience, the skills, and look at those sorts of things. So if you're going for, say, an accountant position, and in the job spec, it says must be able to do debtors and creditors, or trial balances and balance sheets. If you've done that in your current job, find a way of marrying what they're asking for with what you've done, because then they go, oh, she's or he's really good at this, has 8 years experience in this. But so you have to have read the job spec. If you don't have the job spec, the actual physical job spec, you can ask for that before, because that's hugely helpful. Okay, in terms of your tone of voice, you speak clearly and at an appropriate volume. So you don't mumble, and you don't shout, and you don't talk too quietly, because you don't want them to be asking you to repeat yourself. And obviously you don't speak too fast or too slowly, because again, they're going to ask you to repeat yourself. And if you speak too slowly, they might be bored. So it's a definite no-no. Enunciate your words really clearly. So don't mumble, don't say words that you don't understand just because it sounds cool. And don't use and like. So that goes to kind of preparing yourself a little bit, so those filler words won't fall into your speech. And there you see, I've just done it myself. And don't mumble. You don't want them to get bored because you're mumbling, or because you're going on for too long. Okay, when it comes to highlighting skills and experience, make sure, like I said just now, to tailor your skills and experience to the position. So if you're going for a receptionist position, they want to know that you've answered the phone and that you've introduced visitors and those sorts of things, because that's what the position requires. And quantifiable metrics to highlight your achievements. Again, if you're an accountant and you've managed to save the company money on certain things, make sure you know exactly how you've done that, what you've done, how much you've saved the company, so that they can see that and go, oh, okay, maybe she can or he can bring that in here. And I often tell my candidates, an interview is like a sales call. You're the product. You need to be able to sell yourself so that they can hire you, because you can do the job that they are looking for better than everyone else who's going for that interview. Okay. Now, when it comes to strengths and weaknesses, and I've had candidates who've been for interviews where they've been asked to do a SWOT analysis on themselves, their strengths, their weaknesses, what opportunities they have, and what threatens them. It's happened a handful of times, but it happens. So when it comes to your strengths and weaknesses, you highlight the strengths that are best suited to the requirements of that particular role. Find them, and if you have to the night before, make a list of them and find ways of bringing them in so that they can see. And then when it comes to weaknesses, they will always ask, what are you not good at? What do you struggle with? Turn those into things you're working on. Make them positive. Make them, I'm really struggle to multitask, for an example, or even better, and sounds positive, I really struggle to delegate. But I'm learning how to, because I've realized that I can't do everything myself. That's a potential weakness, but actually, you know what? I've turned it into something I'm working on and something that's going to make me a better candidate or a better employee. They like to hear those sorts of things. Okay. Now I have a client, and I've got a list of the questions that they have on their list to ask candidates. So I've borrowed it. And it's actually really interesting to know some of the questions. Obviously, you can Google the questions that you top 10 interview questions. 9 times out of 10, they might ask 3 of them. But these ones I find really interesting, and I'm going to go through them one by one. Okay, tell us about yourself. 99.9% of the time, when you sit down at an interview, that's the first question they're going to ask you. Tell us about yourself is not that you are married with 2 kids and a dog and that you live in Hyde Park. They want to know about what you studied, why you studied it, if it relates to the position, about your working career, and about what gets you out of bed in the morning in terms of your job. So the personal stuff, they might ask you at a later stage. The tell us about yourself question, please believe me, it relates to your job. Okay. This is a question my client asks their candidates, and it's what's the most interesting thing about you that's not on your CV? So they've looked, they know that you've got a BCom, they know that this is who you work for now, who you worked for before. They know all those sorts of things. The most interesting thing about you that's not on your CV, and it's so amazing to bring it in, is that you love to water ski on Sundays, or that you collect miniature cars, because they want to see what kind of person you are outside of the office, so that they know about your personality and are you going to get on with the team, and all those sorts of things. So if you don't get asked that, you don't have to bring it in, but I just thought it was a really nice way of getting to know a candidate from an interviewer's perspective. This one they may ask, and they probably will, what are your understanding of the role? Why does the job appeal to you? They might ask you, what do you know about our company? But your understanding of the role goes back to the job spec, so that you can tell them, I understand that I'm applying for a receptionist position, and this is what you're looking for. Why does it appeal to you? Well, because you've got the skills, you've got the experience, you have the voice for telephones, you know exactly how to do it. You've been working as a receptionist for 5 years, those sorts of things. Find ways of selling that. And please believe me, they're going to ask you, what do you know about the position? And why does this job appeal to you? Because they also want to see that you are the right person for the job and that you've done your research. And again, at that time, you could also bring in, well, I had a look at your website and I found out this about your company, and I'd really like to work for Discovery. Some other questions you could be asked. What is your main reason for wanting to leave your current position? Please don't ever, and I repeat this later on, but please don't ever say, well, my company's in financial difficulty, or because I really don't get on with my boss, or my team is, not nice to me, or those sorts of things. Your main reason for wanting to leave your current position is you're looking for growth. You believe that, or you've studied subsequent to that, and you now believe that you are perfect for this kind of position, or because you've been at the company for 8 years and you feel that it's time to broaden your horizons. In this question, never, ever, ever be negative. Okay, this is another one. Walk us through your daily duties. I had a candidate who was turned down because she said, well, I get to the office, I put my bag down, I make myself some coffee, I turn my laptop on. They don't want to know that. They want to know how you split your day between meetings, between answering emails, between meeting with staff or clients. And again, you tie that back to the job spec if you can, so they can see that what you're currently doing and what they're looking for is sort of ties in with each other. Greatest work achievement to date. You'll have to think about that one yourself, but say, going back to my previous example, I managed to save the company 100,000 Rand a year by going to VoIP, or switching switchboard systems, or going paperless. think about that, because most of my clients ask candidates those sorts of things. I mean, obviously, I can't answer that for you, but there definitely is something that you can use in that for that question. Okay, how do you keep track of things that you're responsible for at work? They're going to ask you that. So whether it's an Outlook calendar, whether it's reminders, whether it's an actual physical book with a to-do list or reminders on your phone, they will ask you those sorts of things. They want to be able to see that you can manage your deadlines, that potentially can multitask, and that you don't let things fall through the cracks and you don't drop any balls. So for that particular question, try to be as specific as you possibly can, related to your job, obviously. And again, this is another question from my client. Tell us about a time when you had completing deadlines at work. So it is a little bit of a difficult one, and it takes a bit of practice to get this answer quite right. But it's important, again, so that they can see that you can handle your pressure, and that you can get the job done on time. But when it comes to competing deadlines, it's extra important so that they can see how you get those sorts of things done. Tell us about a time when you had to deal with a difficult customer or client. So those sorts of things, they want to see how you handle pressure, or how you crack under pressure, or when you don't, and how you deal with people, what your customer service is like, and also what your problem-solving skills are like, and how you resolve situations when you've got a client or a customer or a student in class who's difficult. And all of us have had to deal with that. So, you'll come up with the best example and how it was successfully done. Okay, now let's talk about things that you should never ask or say, ever. Interview 1, interview 2, interview 3, panel interviews, all those sorts of things. You never make negative statements about your current company or boss, no matter how difficult that is. Don't do it. It's not worth it, because they're going to believe that if you do that about the current or previous company or boss, that you'll do the same thing about them when you leave, and they will also see it as disrespectful. So if, for my example, when I was working in corporate, my boss was terrible, and I left without another job to go to because of him. But I would never say that in an interview. So I would always tell them in the few interviews that I had after I left that my boss always told me never to take a phone call 5 minutes before a meeting, because it's going to make you late. And I've never forgotten that, and it's really helped me. But I would never say to them he was a terrible micromanager or something like that. And I really don't like micromanagers. Again, never discuss salary, benefits, office hours. Do you close? Can I take leave in December? What happens if I fall pregnant? Do you offer maternity leave? None of those things show them about you. All it shows them is that you're only interested for what you can get out of them, not what you can bring them. Those sorts of things you'll either have heard from a recruiter, or you'll find out in your offer letter. But it's not worth wasting time asking about those sorts of things. And then don't ask about next steps. So never walk out of the interview and say, thank you so much. When do I expect to hear from you? Will you email me? Are you going to call me? They will tell you if you've applied direct, or they will tell your recruiter. They won't tell you. And it's not polite to ask. In the actual interview, you don't interrupt them. So if they're asking you a question or they're telling you something about the company or the position which seems to be quite long, and you're not sure what they're asking, or you're not sure what they're saying, wait for them to finish first and then ask. Listen as much as you possibly can and then ask. Because people don't want to be interrupted while they're speaking, lose their train of thought. somebody asked me once if you must ask about the company culture. Don't ask. It doesn't add value. All it shows is that you're only in it for yourself, and you're only in it. Well, if the company culture doesn't really suit me, well, then I'm not going to take this job. It's not important. You'll find that out. Don't ask about challenges facing the company or team, and don't ask why the previous person left. Not important. You don't need to know that. You might ask your recruiter, is this a brand new position or am I replacing someone? But that's all. Don't ask in the interview. Remember that you've got a certain amount of time to sell yourself. These questions and these statements take away from the time that you could be showcasing you and why you're the best person for the job. Don't ask about growth prospects. You don't have the job yet. So, for example, if you're going for a sales consultant position and you're being interviewed by the sales manager and you say, how long before I can get promoted? That's his job or her job that you're going to be promoted to. And that also doesn't really look very good. Those are kind of things that you ask once you've been in the position for a year or 6 months or a year. And again, don't ask the interviewer where they see the company in 5 years' time. All these things, you don't have the job yet, and these things aren't important. Okay, when it comes to at the end of every interview, they're going to ask, do you have any questions? So don't ask questions where you could have found the answer out yourself. So if you've looked at their website and you're going for an interview, say at a private tertiary, don't ask them, how many campuses have you got? What's your staff, how many staff have you got? Those sorts of, how many people in your team? If you can find those answers out yourself, do it. Don't ask. Look at their website and use information that you found in the website to structure your questions. And I say questions in inverted commas because sometimes a suggestion might work better. So, for example, I've had a look at your website and I see that you only offer up to honors degree. Has the institution considered master's degree studies? They will see that you've looked at the website. They will see that you're interested. And instead of asking a question which you could have found the answer to, you've made a suggestion, which to me always looks better than asking a question where it doesn't add value. And if you don't have questions, you don't have to ask them. I know everyone says, oh, what questions should I ask? If there's no questions, thank you very much. I think you have answered everything I was, thinking of asking you. It's not compulsory, not necessary. If you want, then ask. But if you like sitting there and struggling, don't make anything up. When you're done, shake the interviewer's hand, thank them for their time, and leave. And then you don't send a follow-up thank you email when you get in your car. You don't ask, when can I get feedback? And it's not necessary. You don't phone them. And if you haven't heard from them, then take it that your application has not been successful. But please don't follow up. Okay, so that's me. There are my details. I know this webinar is being recorded, and I know we can share this webinar. But my question is now, if I can open it up to the people here, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. We do still have about 25 minutes. So if there's any questions that I haven't answered, please go ahead.
Kim,
Yes.
if you know that you've interviewed badly, okay, is there any way of coming back?
So if you're sitting in the interview and you think to yourself, oh my gosh, I answered that question really badly, don't focus on it, because all your next answers are going to be based on that. So find the next question and answer better. If I'm understanding you correctly, Helene?
Yes, I was actually thinking after the interview. So you've left and you know that, you can generally get a feeling in an interview. And if your nerves got in the way, or know yourself that you just could have done it so much better. In a
So I don't
in a
believe
follow-up
that you
letter.
can go a follow-up, say, I was nervous, or I didn't showcase my skills and experience to the best of my abilities. Please give me a second chance. I'm not a fan of that. And also your suspicion that you interviewed badly might actually not be true. So sometimes interviewers ask the difficult questions and put you on the spot and stuff, not because they want you to interview badly or, to mess up, but they want to kind of get an idea of, or to see how you handle those sorts of situations. So you may think you've interviewed badly, but you may not have actually.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any questions from anybody else?
Yeah, hi Kim.
Hi, Harel.
The last time I had an interview was when I was 20 years old.
Sounds
Every
like
job,
me.
yeah. So every job I've had, I've just been approached and come work for us, or it's just happened. Now I'm looking to do something totally different. I'm trying to, I don't like start maybe my own little business, but I want to work with people. And if I have to have interviews, that's what's freaking me out. How do I don't know. I haven't been in an interview for 100 years.
So
And
have you ever sat and met somebody knowing that it's not an interview situation for a coffee? Say you want to sell them an idea for your new business, and you meet at a coffee shop and you chat to that person and they're like, Harel, tell us about your idea. And you can find yourself in a relaxed space and tell them about what your plans are and those sorts of things. See the interview like that.
okay, I did. I met with Amanda, and like she said to me, tell me what you did and what you want to do. And she said, I think you're amazing.
So remember that when you meet with the next person. No, seriously. And
Yeah.
or if you were sitting with your husband or your best friend with a glass of wine or a coffee, imagine
Yeah.
that sensation, that relaxedness. If you ask me to tell you about something that I'm passionate about, it's like my body language goes, oh, okay, I know what I'm talking about. I know how I can sell myself, and I know how I can get this person to buy into whatever I'm selling or doing or the service I'm offering. The word interview makes you nervous. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to, though. Just be relaxed, but definitive in what you are wanting to get across. But don't be scared. I know interviews can be, and a little bit of nerves is not a bad thing. But sitting there for the full hour or however long it is being nervous, you're only going to walk away, like Helene said, and go, oh my God, I interviewed so badly. They'll never hire me or buy my products or service.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. It definitely makes sense. But it's just like, oh my God, it's just like something that I never ever thought I'd have to do, have a go for an interview. And I can
So
see
then take the word interview out your mind.
a
Use
job
another
application.
word.
Yeah,
Or even
because
if it's a business meeting.
Because I'm waiting to hear from like quite a big initiative. They want me to come and run their admin. And I know I'm going to have to meet the board. They're not just going to say, you've got the job, come work tomorrow. Whatever salary you want, you've got. Whatever you want, you can have. I'm going to have to meet the people that I don't know.
Sure.
Before they say, yes, you've got the position.
But we all have to meet people on a daily or weekly basis that we've never met before.
Yeah, but it's different when it's socially.
Sure. No, 100%. No, 100%. But if you are if you are confident in your product, or you are confident in your skills, your abilities, your experience, your education, take that with you and know that it's only going to be an hour of your life.
Yeah.
And smile and tell them about you, and then get in your car and like breathe a sigh of relief until the next time.
Eat 10 chocolates.
Or something like that. Or have that cigarette after your interview or your business meeting.
Yeah. Thanks.
Sure. Does anyone
Kim,
else have anything? Yes.
how do you handle a potential employee wanting to phone or connect with your previous company for references, and you know the reference is not going to be good?
Okay, so in my experience, references I only get once the candidate has resigned. So I'll never take a reference before they've let their current company know that they are leaving and joining another company. But I will, if that's the case, and most of my clients ask for 2 references, I'll get the previous company and the one before that. If the most recent reference, you don't get on with your boss, or the reference is going to be really bad, you are allowed to say, I would prefer you not to contact that person. I can give you somebody else at the company. I didn't report to them, but I have a very good relationship and they know what my work is like. You can do that. Getting a reference, a bad reference, it's the most soul-destroying thing. And if you know it's going to happen, you can say, I would prefer that you didn't contact that person. And you can be honest and say, we have a personality clash, and I don't believe that person will, show me in the best light for this new job. Rather than just saying, well, here's their number and hope for the best, because, you're not going to get the job because of that.
Thank you. Kim, one more question. If somebody verbally has offered you something and you've had a verbal conversation over the telephone, and they're waiting on you to make a decision, what is the normal time that you should what is the etiquette of that reply?
So look, obviously don't leave it too long, because the longer you leave it, the more they think you won't be interested. It all depends on the actual current position or the offer. Usually the next day would be good, or the day after, so 1 or 2 days after the offer, but definitely not a week. And then if you are not sure that you've come to a decision yet after 2 days, you can say, look, I just need another 24 hours, but I would not leave it any longer than that, because they usually say sleep on it and let me know, or speak to your partner and let me know tomorrow or the next day. But definitely the longer you leave it, the more they think you're not interested. And then the next day, if you've got questions about what they've offered, or working hours or hybrid or remote, then you ask that before you make your decision. But again, once they've offered you the position, make sure that you know exactly what it is that you are making a decision on, that you've got all the facts. Am I going to have to travel? Can I work from home 2 days a week? What's my leave allocation? What, added benefits are there? Do you pay medical aid? Those sorts of things. Then you can make a decision within a day or 2.
Thank you, Kim.
Sure.
Any other questions? Anybody with some questions?
Kim, what's the best way, or how do you position yourself around the table if they're waiting for you, or if they take you into a conference room?
So they will generally lead you into a conference room, or the receptionist or PA or whatever will take you into the meeting room. the people who are, if it's a panel interview, the people who are interviewing you will generally stand up and shake your hand. 9 times out of 10, they will show you where to sit, or they will offer you a seat. Obviously, don't sit next to them if it's a square table, but most often they will show you where to sit. Have a seat over here, will make yourself comfortable. It could be on a couch. Most of my clients have round, small meeting rooms, so they will say, please sit there. Generally across from them is the best place to sit.
And do you put your back against the chair, your hands? What do you do with your hands?
So yes, sit with your back against the chair, hands on your lap. Talking with your hands is not always the worst thing. Obviously, you don't want to be too busy and too distracting, but you can talk with your hands. But when you're not talking with your hands in your lap, obviously you want to look comfortable, and you don't want to be sitting sort of like soldier-like with your hands in your lap and not breathing and not moving. So comfortable with your hands in your lap. And then, I want to talk with my hands. I want to show you what I'm doing, but not too much.
Never hands on the table.
Never hands on the table. Body language is really important. So I know somebody who would sit like this with a hand like on the table, if you can see my screen like this. That's arrogant. That's I'm showing I'm better than you. And you need to be relaxed, and you need to show them that actually they're the people interviewing you. It's not the other way around. Body language is so important when it comes to those sorts of things.
Yeah. Cross
So thank
legs,
you for
cross
asking
ankles.
that. Yeah, cross your ankles, sitting with your, and I mean, we could, well, maybe not me, but somebody could do an entire webinar on body language in situations. So many things are arrogant, or I'm better than you, or I know more than you, when actually you're in an interview, so you're not. You want them to give you the job. And again, it depends on the kind of position you're going for. If you're going for a senior accountant or a CEO or even a receptionist, and I keep going back to receptionists, they want to see that you smile a lot, that you're friendly, that you can work with their team, but also at the same time that you know your stuff and you know how to do this job.
Yeah.
So that body language is really important. Thank you for asking that question.
Yeah. Confidence, not arrogance. It's very good.
And there's a fine line, hey? There's a
Yeah.
fine line between being too arrogant and telling them they have to give you this job, or showing them in your body language that you are perfect, and if they don't hire you, then they're stupid.
Thank you.
Sure. So I see that there's a question from Peter. What does one do if they ask what salary you would like to earn? So in most cases, the salary is advertised on the position. If it's not, and you kind of can't work out or can't ask anyone, like a recruiter, what they're offering, and you know that this is what you're currently earning, but you also know that what you're earning is not market related, you can actually say to them, either, I believe the position is offering X, I'm currently on Y, and I would like to obviously move for more money. It would be beneficial to move for more money. So you can ask that. If you know say the position is offering 50,000 Rand a month, and you're currently on 30, but you want 60, please don't say anything like that. So what I guess what I'm trying to say is find out if you possibly can what they're offering. Also see if you can find out what a market-related salary is for the kind of position with your experience and with your qualifications. And don't go in too high, because that's never a good thing. Also, it's never something to ask in the first interview. Most companies will have an interview where you either meet the HR manager and the hiring manager, and then later on you will potentially meet like the CEO or the MD or whatever. Maybe at that point you can discuss salary, but you don't want to make it all about that, because they will think that's, That's all I'm in for, is how much are you going to pay me? So tread very lightly on the salary issue if you possibly can. If that helps you, Peter.
Kim,
Yes. Hi, Roy.
hi. This is sort of related. I want to ask you, let's say you've been to a few interviews with different companies and you have more than one offer on the table. Now, one of the companies you feel better or you'd like to join one of the companies, but the salary they've offered is lower. Are there any thoughts or suggestions in terms of negotiating?
So it depends. I know most of my clients will only negotiate if they believe that the candidate is absolutely the most perfect person and they have to have them on their team. A lot of them will get a little bit nervous when the candidate, not the recruiter, comes in asking for more money. But if you really want the position, if you really love the company and you know that there's massive growth potential and you can bring so much to the table, you can say, look, you can be honest. I would really like to join your team. I kind of don't feel like I could move for slightly more than I'm currently earning. It wouldn't be worth my while. Is there any wiggle room? And if there isn't wiggle room, then maybe it's not meant to be. But if you phrase it like that versus, no, I'm sorry, you're not paying me enough, I'm going to the other company. I'm not to say that you would do that, but if you kind of phrase it in a gentle way, is there any wiggle room on the salary because I've considered, it's further to drive or it's going to put me in a different tax bracket. If they really like you and they really want you, please believe me, they will find that wiggle room to have you.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, there's another question. How does one introduce themselves? Is it important to mention your qualifications when you introduce yourself? So I think you may have missed the beginning of the webinar, but they've looked at your CV. If your CV is structured correctly, and you can go, I think there's a recording of my previous webinar on CVs. If your CV is structured correctly, it will have your most recent qualification going back to whatever it is in your matric. They've looked at your CV. They've seen what your qualifications are. You don't need to repeat it. That's why they got you into the job, because, you're a chartered accountant and that's what they're looking for. So when you introduce yourself, you don't need to mention it if it is in your CV. Okay, you mentioned that bringing gadgets could be a distraction. So what does one do while waiting in line to be interviewed? Is it professional to be talking on other candidates who are also there for the interview, or do you keep quiet and wait your turn? So I've never had a situation where there's been a waiting line for interviews. The companies generally will structure an interview so that there's, say, one at 10 o'clock until 10:30, and then maybe the next one starts at 1:45. Depends on the position. If you find yourself waiting in a reception area and you know that the person sitting next to you is interviewing, you can be professional and introduce yourself. It's not 100% necessary. My advice to you is not to sit and scroll through your phone in a waiting or in a reception area. If you get there 10 minutes before, it's not that long to wait. And the thing about being on a device or talking to someone is that you might forget to turn your phone off. So you don't take your devices with you, because it's a distraction and it's going to get you into trouble. You don't want somebody to phone, or you don't want your phone to buzz while you're sitting in an interview. Sometimes I had a candidate once who was in an interview and it was an hour and a half, and I was like, she must be done. Let me phone and find out how she went. She was still in the interview because the interviewer loved her so much that they just got chatting and didn't stop. And I phoned an hour and a half later, and she had forgotten to turn her phone off. So yeah, my answer to that is don't take gadgets into, and it's not necessary.
Hey Kim.
Hi.
So I had an interview in a construction company.
Mm.
So they asked me, the interviewer asked me what motivates me. And then I just what came to mind what came to mind first is my daily routine of waking up and going to a jog every day. So since it's not
So
related to okay.
So it's not related. I mean, it's not a bad thing. I'm going for a run or I'm going for a jog helps me clear my mind.
Okay.
I think what they're asking for when they say what motivates you, it's what gets you out of bed in the morning going, oh my goodness, I'm off to work. What about my working day motivates me? If your position is in construction, like you said, it motivates you when you see progress in the build, or when you have an active team member who is motivated to get the job done and does a professional job. They're looking for those sorts of things. And if they ask you on a personal level what gets you out of bed in the morning, then you can say, I generally wake up early and I go for a run to clear my head and get ready for the day. And I find it gives me, it gets my systems going and it gives me that get up and go to really give a good work day. But they're generally asking you about work-related stuff when they say what motivates you.
Oh, thank you so much. I understand now.
Sure.
Sure.
Peter, I see your question about the trend these days with the CV. There is a whole webinar that I did a few months back on CVs, and I'm sure it can be accessed via Ort's hub. Or I can happy to send you the presentation. It doesn't have to be a one-pager, but there's lots of interesting tidbits on that webinar. So I'd like to suggest that you get a copy of that, and I'd be happy to help you with that.
What we'll do at the end, I think even now, Karen can pop the link to Jetflix into the chat. And
Okay.
anybody who would like to see the webinar on CV writing, which I do suggest you all do because it was excellent, you'll be able to access
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. So we have 5 minutes left. Are there any other questions? Anything I haven't covered or anything you'd like to know?
Yes, I also wanted to ask about the weaknesses maybe that you would mention if you get asked in an interview.
Okay. So weaknesses can be turned into opportunities for learning. If you say to them, my weakness is that I'm always late for meetings, not a good thing. But if you say, I'm working on delegating, that's not a negative thing. That's not telling them that you don't know how to delegate or no one's ever taught you how to delegate or you really struggle with it. But you're telling them, I am working on time management skills in terms of delegating to other people because I figured out that I cannot do everything myself. That's not showing a negative. It's not like a minus sign. And it's showing them that you're actively working on it, which is an opportunity, a positive. And interviewers love to hear that.
I don't think I got you clear, man. I don't know. Like
So what
what
would
does
you
daily
tell me your weakness is?
okay.
And then I can help you rephrase it.
So
You've obviously been asked.
yes, I've been asked. I don't remember what I said, but I just want to maybe answer you now, like in this moment. But
Sure.
I don't.
I'll
Sure,
tell you
I don't
what.
know.
No, it's
Yes.
fine. It's fine. My weakness is that I'm very short with people. I'm making it up. And I don't like when people ask stupid questions in a workplace. But I would never say that in an interview. I would find a way of saying, I'm working on listening to what people say and distilling their question or their suggestion before I answer straight away so that I can understand them properly.
Okay.
Instead of people are silly and they ask dwarf questions and I jump down their throat because I've got no patience. That's my weakness, but I've said it in a different way.
Oh yes, man. Yeah, I understand. I see. Okay.
Would it be safe to say my weak point is I always want to finish the task I've started, even though it will affect my personal time? I'm understanding that you take on too much, and that because you want to get the job done and because you're a perfectionist, or you just need to tick things off your to-do list, that you don't have a work-life balance. So you could say, I am finding that I may spend a little bit of personal time getting work things done, and I'm working on my need to be perfect all the time, because it's kind of showing them that you're a perfectionist and that you're a good worker, but it's also showing them that you're structuring your work-life balance so that you're not working all the time. Because please believe you me, if you show an interviewer or a new employer that you're cutting into your personal time they're going to load you with work, because they know that it's okay for you to work on evenings and weekends. So don't fall into that trap. Pleasure.